All right, this is Glendon Cameron. Thanks for coming to Developing Credit webinar for your business session one. There will be other sessions because when you're developing credit or improving your credit, it's not an overnight thing. It's not. I mean, I wish it was, but I'm just telling you the truth because after my divorce, it was rough. Essentially, I had to give her a car which she allowed to be repossessed, which was in both our names, which screwed my credit up, and some other things. I saw my credit drop 300 points. And this was really, it made things very challenging. I couldn't rent an apartment. There was so many things I could not do. So that was the event that put me on the credit rebuilding journey. And I will tell you, I made it a preoccupation. It was a hobby. It was almost an obsession because there was like six websites that was talking about credit, repair, and five were very generic. And then there was one, creditboards.com, and there was another one. It's not around anymore. And there were some people that gave me some ideas, and it worked. It totally worked because I remember the first month. And if anyone tells you you can't get things off your credit report if they're true, I'm here to tell you that is not true. I did it. There's a lot of techniques, and typically you have to set them up for the fall, but we will get to that later. Another reason I'm doing this is my consulting business. I have talked to so many people that do not have a credit card. I mean, I'm talking about they have a debit card, or it's like, well, the money come out of my, PayPal is their, it's how they buy stuff. They have their money in PayPal, or debit card got messed up and they don't have another debit. I mean, so many things happen in my consulting business, and with putting together the hustler mindset project and setting all this stuff up together, there's so many people who do not have credit cards because they don't have good credit. It's a lot more than I thought. There is good credit, there's bad credit, there's damaged credit, but there are people who have no credit. And what really prompted me to do this, and this was a consult I did at the beginning of the year. This guy is doing about 15,000 a month total revenue, and he does everything with his debit card. And he was saying, and this is when I just had to really school him. This guy was spending $3,000 to $6,000 a month on his debit card. And I was like, dude, that's 30, 60,000 points. That's a free plane ticket. If you got the right card, that's a first class ticket for doing something that you're normally going to do. There are so many. And the thing is, you're not going to get the credit cards that offer the best rewards and perks unless you have a very good credit score. American Express is number one. And after that, you have a few that come close. And if you have your own business and you're doing really well, your bank may put together a credit card for you. But I was just blown away. This guy was grossing, 180,000 a year. He didn't have a credit card. I couldn't believe it. He did not have one, and he was now. I'm going to tell some of his business. He was living with his girlfriend, who was pregnant at the time, which kind of, he was using her car for the business. There's a lot of things that are saying that we don't have good credit. He never said that, and we didn't really jump into it. But based on dynamic thinking and reasoning, it's like, okay, if he could do better, he would. And from someone who was in a cash only business where I could pretty much, I paid cash for cars. Only thing I haven't paid cash for to date, actually, that's not true. There was a small rental property I paid cash for, but it wasn't a lot of money. It was only 35,000. And I actually got rid of that 6 months later because it was a money pit. I learned from my banker, and I'm going to give you an example. And actually, it was with this house. I told him I was going to pay cash. I paid cash, but I got a small mortgage. And he said, if you get the mortgage with us, we'll pay closing costs. And I was like, no, I'll just go ahead and pay cash. And he's like, no, you don't understand me. You could save yourself a few $1,000s by taking out this mortgage. We'll use the money in the bank as collateral for the mortgage. Then, The way he explained it to me, and it was just like, oh, and when it made sense, it was like, it's these little things that you can do that can make you money that the average person isn't thinking about because they're so caught in that survival mode that you can never get to the point of excess and access to where you can look down and say, oh, I could do this and I can do this. And this is why I'm doing this webinar, because comes up all the time. Is credit better than cash? Hell yes. During the recession, cash was king. Notice I said was. Banks are loaning because people are flipping houses in my neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, the houses start at high twos and go up to like two. And when I say my neighborhood, I'm talking about the zip code, not just, my subdivision, whatever. People are flipping houses over here. They're borrowing money. They're getting hard. Money is flowing again. And it's flowing in areas that they know they can make money. But if you go to, say, a hard money lender and you don't have a track record, they're going to look at your credit report. I want you to ask yourself this. Here's this person you never met before, right? They want to do a business deal with you. You have no way to gauge their financial acumen. I know that some venture capitalists, angels, if you've got jacked up credit, you're not getting the money. I don't care how promising your ideal is. If your ideal is really promising, they're going to take a greater equity stake, and they may install one of their managers at your expense in your company just to make sure that you do the right things with the money, which will cost you big time. You're just better off learning how to handle your own money, because there was a period of time during the recession, cash was king. It was king because you couldn't get credit. And I noticed that because I was and I've got to see all aspects of having bad credit to having great credit. And I've got to, in having business credit. And it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference in your life. And say you're a person like, I'm not using credit cards, I don't believe in it. You still need to have good credit and credit cards, whether you use them or not. Insurance, car insurance, home insurance. They have come up with these calculations and these flow charts that if you have bad credit, that you're a higher risk pool, and you're in the higher risk pool, you're going to pay more money for stuff. That is just for that alone, it's worth having it. Now, with the capital markets, this is how people get money. And, I study economics to a degree. I'm not an economics major or anything like that, but I do understand not even billionaires use their own money for business. Let's take, I don't like the guy, but I'm going to have to give him credit. Donald Trump could have did a lot of his deals on his own because of the money that Fred Trump put into the family coffers. He brought in other players. He never used his own money. I want you to listen to me on this. When you hear someone like Donald Trump getting sued, I want you to understand the way that their wealth is protected. The family is never going to be impacted. Never going to be impacted. Even with mobsters who went ahead and cleaned up the money and put up trust. And you ever notice how a lot of these mob wives are still living large? No money's coming in. Where's the money coming in? They use capital markets. They use the wills trust. They use the estate planning. There's a lot of things that goes on. But, back to the capital markets, that's essentially, in my opinion, the game is rigged to take advantage of the uninitiated. That's why, currently I have some stuff in my, Roth IRA and my SEP, but I am working on getting back into real estate because they ain't making no more. They're not making anymore. I mean, that's kind of my new thing. But understand, even with to my larger point with the capital markets, do you know when you go for an IPO and you're one of the principals of that company, the SEC, and they do a credit check on you and a background check. And if you have some jacked up credit or some issues, that could hold up your IPO. A lot of people don't know that. And, people are like, well, Glendon, all these young guys are getting money. If you're a Mark Zuckerberg or you're one of these teenage whiz kids, no one expects you to have a credit profile. It won't be held against you because you're a kid. But if you're 30 years old, you're 40 years old, you're 50 years old, and you don't have a credit profile, that's going to be a problem for you. in so many ways. It's ridiculous. And once again, understand, don't hate the player, don't hate the game, learn the fucking rules so you can win. And credit is a game. It is a game. And it's a game I'm going to teach you how to play very well. All right. Fixing fucked up credit. First thing you need to do, and I'm going to explain each one of these in detail, is to opt out. Opting out is calling that number. They're going to ask for your social security number. And what this does is prevent the credit bureaus from selling your information. When you go to your mailbox and there's like, hey, this credit card offer pre-approved, that came because Equifax, Experian, TransUnion sold your information. And this is how it happens. The credit card company, excuse me, the credit card company will go to Equifax and say, hey, we need a pool of applicants who fit this credit profile. And opting in can be good because sometimes, like, when Discover Card came out, I got one, even though I didn't really have much credit at the time, but they were new and they were literally giving anyone and everyone a credit card. So sometimes those offers can be good, but for most of the time, the credit company is the credit agency, the credit reporting agency is selling your information. So it's like, hey, give us this big block. And if you ever got one, there's two types of pre-approval: pre-screened and pre-approved. Pre-approved, you sign it, you send it back, you got a card. That's it. Those are the best ones to get. Now, fixing credit, it takes time. Excuse me. It takes time. It takes more time than you want to believe, but look at it this way. If you're going to live for the next 60 years or 80 years or whatever, and it takes you 2 years to clean up your credit, it's worth it. That, living for the day mentality is cool in some aspects, but financially it's not really the best way to go. Another nuance, you need to clean and build at the same time. And I'm going to talk about that because say you're working on your credit file, and I'll tell you, I did it for myself and I became good. And over the years, I've helped out quite a few people. And in the last 2 years, I've helped out 10 people. 2 I were dating, at various times. And, just let me know, a lot of people don't understand how credit works. So this information I'm giving you still works to this day. Last person I helped was 6 months ago. And it took from start to finish damn near a year of helping her clean up her stuff. Crazy, crazy stuff was going on with her. But it all starts with sound fiscal management. Meaning if you don't manage your money will manage you. I've been there. I went through it. That's what I'm telling you. You have to do these things. You have to do these things because going forward, living inside the matrix, credit is going to be super important. It's going to separate the classes. Now, I know there's someone's going, hey. I thought this was about business credit. It is. Business credit is a different animal than personal credit. But to get business credit, you need to get your personal credit straight first. Because let's just be honest. If you've got messed up personal credit and you somehow finagle 100,000, 200,000 in business credit, what are you going to do? You're going to jack it up because you don't have the controls that you need to have when things go south. I will tell you, during the storage auction business, there was a period when I made some mistakes and I had to live on credit cards. But due to building up my credit profile, I had a card with $50,000 limit. I had 3 of them. I used, each, I'll tell you exactly what I did. That time I would use one, then, you're not supposed to do this, but we had 3 different merchant accounts for 3 different businesses. I run the credit card through their pool cash, put it in the bank, paid credit card off with their money. And I pretty much rotated cash until the cash came back in and I paid everything off. If I didn't have high credit limits, I wouldn't have been able to do this. And and I've talked to other people who've done similar things because, give you an example. And yeah, I actually, for this to make sense, you have to know what's called exposure levels. Most people with time and income can get up to 35,000 credit card limit. Most people can get there within, a decade, or they may start off with 20 and get there in a few years. Most people can get there. And once you hit that first credit card at 35,000, next time you apply for one, they're either going to come a little bit under or they're going to beat it. And then the next level is 50,000. But that's where it gets dicey. I will tell you exactly how to make that happen. If you're with a bank, because some banks don't offer credit cards with that limit as part of their standard credit portfolio, they just don't offer that. I could tell you USA does. I could tell you Navy Federal. Navy Federal on the flagship rewards card, max limit is 150,000. And it was just because a lot of officers, when you include all of their perks, make 150, 200 grand a year. So you want to know what the bank's exposed, and you can ask. You can call up the credit card department and say, "Hey, what's your exposure limit? What's your max?" They'll tell you. But anyone can get to 35, and once you get to 50, it gets interesting because if you say you're applying for a credit card, and it's like, what you want your credit limit to be, or you just say, give me whatever, and I would always say, give me the max, 50,000, 60,000. At that point, they start asking for financials. They will, American Express will just say, hey, we need to see they'll send you a form where you have to fill out and sign it so they can look in your tax forms. They will do that to you in a heartbeat. And other banks was like, hey, we need to see documentation. But if you're banking with a bank that has those type of credit limits and you run a lot of cash through the accounts, they already know what your income is. Like if you're consistently running 10, 15 grand through your personal account and you apply for a credit card, and understand if, there's like, well, the credit card department is separated from the insurance card. Yeah, they're separated, but in your file, there's a profile. And there'll be a little mark in there saying, yeah, we could do this because we know this person brings this much cash through. So fine, this is one of the reasons you need to deal with those banks that people like, the big banks, Citibank, or, Bank of America, because they will sometimes offer you a credit card based on what's going through your account. Because there's this group in all banks called wealth management, and they look for high deposit, high deposit depositors. They look for that. When you walk in the bank and people like, hey, Mr. Cameron, they know you. When they look in there, they're inputting stuff in your profile. They're not going to tell you this, but when they know you, it's because you're always doing something and you're making transactions that the average person doesn't. Serious. If you go to a bank every month and deposit a $5,000 check, which is not a lot of money, they will know who you are because most people don't do that. So personal credit will definitely play into your business credit. And like, say you're signing a lease on the warehouse. Some small real estate guys will not check your credit. I know when I rented my first warehouse, the guy didn't check my credit. When I rented the second one, they checked all three of my credit reports. So you never know. Sometimes you can get around, but it's just better to have it and not need it than to need it and don't have it. Because when you need it bad. Now, all right, let's start with your credit journey. And this is where it's going to get a little weird. We love the internet. We think it's great. We think it's wonderful. But doing your credit disputes online, you are screwing yourself. Spend the money and get printed copies of all your credit reports. And the reason is your printed copy is going to have some stuff on it that your online credit report, the one they show you because it's truncated, you will be missing out vital information. Because I recently pulled up my credit report And there's this company that hit up two of my reports, and I don't know why. I don't know them. I never did business with them. Have no clue. And I politely wrote them a letter saying, "Who are you? Why are you in my credit reports? And if you don't remove that inquiry, I am going to sue you." A month later, they were gone. Don't know who it was. See, this is the thing. No one can just check your credit report just to check it legally. They have to have some reasonable use that you apply for credit, you apply for a job, and they have to tell you. A lot of times, people, that's one of the reasons that sometimes it's good to freeze your credit report because it prevents all this crap. But the reason I knew this because I had credit monitoring, and when these hits happen, I got an email alert. Equifax, I use Equifax, but they're a little slow because sometimes it takes them 2 days or 3 days to put it on there, or sometimes they'll do this a weekly thing. And I was at a point of pulling up my credit report every day because I had applied for a lot of credit cards, and you can't do it anymore. You can't do it anymore. But there was this thing that was called bumpage, which is you had USA's credit monitoring service, you had True Credit, and the other one was, I forget. But essentially, you pull your credit report every day. And by pulling your credit report every day, in a month or 90 days, you would bump off inquiries. And when you pull up your credit report, those inquiries are not reflected in your credit profile when someone pulls it up. They won't see all those inquiries because you bumped them off. Because there's this thing called Apparama, and we'll talk about that later. But essentially, there's a lot more to credit than just paying your bill on time. That's key to maintaining good credit, but there's a lot more to it. Now, you will spend some money to do this if you're in a position where you need to challenge some things. You're going to have to do what's called certified return receipt mail. That's when you get this little card and you get the tracking information. Like, if you're a reseller, you already know about this, at least the tracking. And now the post office, they do it electronically. But you fill out this paperwork and you take this little green card and you put it on the back of your envelope, because when they get it, someone's got to sign for it. And this is your proof that you communicated with the credit agency. Because this is what happened to me when things got sticky. During my credit repair journey, first 4 months, I was knocking stuff off. Then it started to get really sticky. And I had one company, because I knew the law, you're going to have to, I didn't put that on there, but it's called, you have to familiarize yourself with the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Fair Credit Debt and Collections Act, FDPA. I will, in the next section, well, not next section, in the next webinar, I will put those things out. But you have to know that law, because say you knock something off your credit report, right? And they reinsert it. No big deal, right? If they don't tell you, and most of the time they don't tell you because 99.8% of the people out there don't know the law. If they insert it and don't tell you within 5 days, you can get that off. And I used that to get one thing off that came back. And then I used lawsuits, and really the threat of lawsuits, because I didn't have to sue anybody. I just sent them a letter saying, "Hey, this is the law. This is what you did. And if you don't remove it, I'm going to sue you." Like I said, I didn't have to sue anybody. And it was just amazing that when you have the right information, what you can get done. It is totally crazy, but expect to spend $20 to $50 a month, or $20 to $50 every 45 or 60 days, because that is your legal right to challenge what's on your credit report. And I will tell you that some people, in helping this girl I was dating, we reached a point where she had like 22 medical collection accounts. And it got to a point that was the only thing on there. Got everything straight. She had to rehab some student loans. I'll just tell you, you are not bumping a student loan off your credit report the way they changed the law. You used to. Now you got to deal with it. So you got to call them up, make some kind of arrangements, because they're not going away. So I was able to get that set up for her. She had to make payments, and after I think the guy said 11 or 15 payments, They went ahead and took all the negative stuff off her credit report and put her stuff as current, which actually raised her score. So that's just that is like probably the only thing that you're not getting off in a fresh bankruptcy. That's another thing. And for fresh bankruptcy, that's a whole nother way to go after that. Never challenge a serious derog on your credit report. Now, what's a serious derog? Collection account, anything like that. You can do inquiries. That's not a biggie because inquiries after 12 months really have no point value on you anyway. So never ever do the disputing online because you give up 80% of your rights guaranteed by law when you do it because they're going to have you like, check this, that you agree to our terms and regulations, which means we're taking away your rights if you choose to use our platform to do your dispute online. So you never ever want to do that. Have to be realistic. Your credit didn't get messed up overnight. And you got to take a long-term view. You can make some serious, like I went from nothing to something in roughly 6 months. It got good. 8 months, it went excellent. But I did this every day. I read everything I could read. I talked to people. I wrote letters. I mean, I was spending a lot of money on my correspondence. And when I was done, I had 2 accordion files and one of those file boxes full of all my correspondence. Because the thing is, if you have to go to court, you cannot go in there with your good looks, good intentions, and a smile. You need to come in. If you walk in, and I read this guy's psychodoc, when you walk in to court with a file the yay thick, that speaks to the judge and that speaks to the opposing side. It's like, oh hell. Because the thing is, I used to date an attorney and she said a lot of people, most suing people is very expensive. It is very expensive, unless it's something easy. So a lot of times they don't sue, they settle. But understand, when you are dealing with this process of reclaiming your financial life, expect it to take 2 years. You can do a lot in 6 months, but expect it to take 6 years. Expect it to take 2 years because there's more things that you have to do. Now, this is a part I should warn you about, and this happened to me, and it happened to a few people I helped. And matter of fact, it happened to everybody. When your credit is garbage, you are what's called judgment proof. Your credit's garbage. You don't own any property. You don't have any assets. No one's going to sue you because you don't have anything worth coming after. There's no point in suing you. It's throwing good money after bad. But once you start improving, zombie debt, all kind of crazy stuff will start popping up. You will start getting letters in the mail from people you never heard of. You will start getting phone calls. And you're like, wait a minute, how the hell did they know? Just remember when I said, get your credit monitoring service. The credit grantors have a similar service that when you have certain activity on your report, they're alerted. Perfectly legal. When you signed up for the credit cards or whatever, and all that legalese, you signed up for that. You can't sue them for that. It's part of when you accepted the terms they offer, you accepted that shit too. So they will come after you because it's like, they have money. They want to get their credit straight. And the biggest thing that you can do, excuse me, that will flush out all of them is apply for a mortgage. You will when I had got my credit straight and I was applying for a mortgage, fortunately for me that I went ahead and did it early. Collection accounts popped up. My credit score dropped 125 points overnight. This collection agency came because I applied for a mortgage. And this happened within a week. And when I just started doing research, I was like, how the hell did they? Seriously, it was just like crazy. And, later on we'll talk about it. But the main offender actually was trying to collect what was called a time barred debt. It was past the statute of limitations. And I knew that. And I caught him slipping. So I got that one off really quick. And I had to spend another month writing letters, getting stuff straight, and getting rid of those people. And I didn't have to pay anybody because I would just take this. It was my ex-wife's stuff, and I was just like, it had nothing to do with me. But they were coming after me. And I was just like, it was crazy. And I found a house, and I didn't get that house. I had to get another one because what they do is it's a leverage point. When they know that you are trying to get a house, people will do whatever because you find this house, you fall in love, you want to move in with it, get your family life going, and they just come after you because they know that you're under the gun. Now, this is another thing that you should know. If you have bad credit right now, and if you go to all your creditors and say, hey, I want to pay you, it will not make your credit better at all. Nope. Paying late bills, tardy bills, old bills, it will not help you with your current credit profile. Like, say, if you have Citibank or you're with American Express and you burn them. If you go back and you pay an old debt, they will let you back in. But if you don't pay them, you will be on a blacklist, which means you will never ever get credit from them directly again. Like, you may hire with a company and they'll get you an American Express card. But as for a direct credit card from them, nah, it's not happening because you were in their blacklist. But and I read that some blacklists are like 10 years old, 20 years. After a certain point, they purge. But I'm not sure about that. I don't know. But in that instance, it would improve your chances of getting credit with that credit grantor again. And, part of your credit life, you got to know who you're dealing with. If you know you're going to need an American Express card and you got to go through bankruptcy, you pay that bitch off. You pay that bitch off. Keep it open, have no balance on it because they will keep you. As long as you don't do anything, they'll just keep you around. But understand, when you start this journey, you are going to bring a fury of hell on yourself. Crazy. So I'm just letting you know, because once you're armed with the proper information, it's not so scary. But when all this stuff is just coming at you, because when it happened to me, I was pissed, but I had read about it and I knew what to do. And it just cost me that first house. And actually, I got another house that was a little bit bigger for the same money in a better neighborhood. So it wasn't like a total loss. But when you're out there trying to buy a house, this is the last thing that you want to happen. And another thing, if you're trying to get your credit straight for a house or something, you're going to need 3 credit cards, roughly with a minimum of $5,000 limits each, and maybe one other installment loan. Or you can have one credit card with like $20,000 limit and in a long history and a car payment that's paid off. And, that will put you in a position to get a house. It's either you have a lot or you have a few. And another thing, if you're a recent college graduate, I read about this years ago in Atlanta newspaper. There used to be this home section that came out every Sunday. And this girl had graduated, I think either Georgia or Emory. She was 6 months in her job. She had wanted to buy a house, and the bank told her that if your employer sends us a letter, we will give you a mortgage based on that and whatever credits you have. So if you're a recent college graduate, one of the best times for you to buy a house as soon as you get out of school, because it will not be held against you that you don't have a credit profile, a lot of credit. I know. I mean, I read that, and it was just so any recent college graduates, that's a way for you to get in the house really quickly in good interest rate and not have anything held against you. Strange, isn't it? I mean, I know for a fact that's true because I know she did it that I read about, and I know 4 other people that did it because I told them, I was like, hey, you just graduated college and talk to your banker if you don't believe me. It's amazing what they offer you. So this is just, like I said, to let you know what's going to happen once you get on this journey. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to order. You may have to pay money if you're in a state where you get a free credit report. They'll just send it to you. You want to make sure that you get all three of your credit reports: Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. Get all of them. And then while you're waiting for them, start familiarizing yourself with statute of limitations. Typically, they'll tell you 7 years for it to come off your credit report, which is true. But most states is 3 years to 6 years where they can sue you for a contract. So if you're in, I don't know all of the states by heart. I know Georgia is 6 years, Alabama is three. But if you're in Alabama and someone's trying to sue you, or they're like threatening to sue you, and it's 4 years after the debt went bad, they can't legally do it. And they know this, but once again, they know that the regular folks don't know this. And people that are intimidated or shamed into paying debts. And let me just say this: if it's your debt, you should pay it. But if it's 6, 7 years and to pay that debt, it's going to put a hardship on you, and really, it's going to fall off your credit report in a matter of months. I wouldn't pay it. That's just what I'm saying. You're your own person. You're going to run your life the way you want to, but it's not going to help you. It's just not. I'm just telling you, it's not going to help you unless you're trying to get good in good graces with that company again. So you want to kind of familiarize yourself with statute of limitations and understand the credit reporting agencies will throw up roadblocks. You will probably, and the thing is, it's like the more derogs you have, and derogs are derogatory entries onto your credit report, the easier it is to get stuff off. But if you've got one, two, maybe three bad things, it could take you 6 months to get those three or four, or a year to get those three things off, because they're sticky. Student loans are sticky. Some medical bills can be sticky. Easiest thing to deal with is collection accounts from utilities, cable, and cell phones. Those are real easy to get off because most of the time they don't do it right. But we'll talk about that in another section. Now, familiarize yourself with the limitations. Develop a game plan. And what I mean by this is, what are you trying to do? Are you just kind of get credit to get credit? Because I'm going to tell you, that's insufficient. You want to, when I say a game plan, it's like uh, credit is a great thing used wisely. And it can be a nightmare if it's used wrong. But your game plan, I'll give you an example. My thing was, I knew that I had to get my stuff cleaned up to get a job. There's still companies now, and this used to be across the board. If you had bad credit and they did a background check, I don't care what was going on, you weren't getting hired. Just for certain jobs, you were not getting hired, and for certain jobs, that still is true. So that was another motivation, because I was going through all of these changes, and I knew to get better jobs with my Scheme Incorporated thing, I had to clean up my credit. And that was a big driver. That's one of the reasons that I worked on it so hard, because it's like, as soon as I got that to a decent point, I could get a better job. With your game plan, give you an example. Say you have shitty credit right now. Your game plan is, in 12 months, I'm going to have 3 to 5 open credit accounts, and I'm shooting for $5,000 limits. You got to have something to shoot for, something to work for, because as we get deeper in this, I can tell you how to get your limits raised and everything. And there's a few card companies I know how they operate. And most importantly, start a savings account. The number one reason that people get in trouble with credit is they don't have enough, and they don't have a savings account. Because when I say don't have enough, say you have, and a lot of people can do this. Say you have 6 credit cards, and let's define, like, I don't do store cards. I don't do J.C. Penney's. I don't do Targets. Whenever they go like, no, I don't want that shit. I only do American Express, Visa, MasterCard. Don't have a Discover. If it's not one of those, I'm not doing it, because it doesn't make any sense. So when you have enough of those, and like I said, anyone can do this. So you've got 5 Visas with $20,000 limits. That's $100,000 worth of credit. You could do a lot with $100,000 worth of credit. You could buy, 5 cheap rental houses, or you could buy one with your credit cards. Get the house rented, get cash flow coming out, and it goes back on the credit cards. Or You buy the house cash, go to the bank, get a mortgage, take the money, pay the credit cards off. This is why you got to get, because see, now I know when I said that, a lot of you are like, whoa. Yeah, imagine right now if you went to, say you got about $50,000 worth of open credit lines and you've got a mixture of store cards and Visa, MasterCard, American Express. I would not say close your store cards, because if you have a store card you have for 25 years and it's current, that helps your credit because that gives you a 25-year credit profile. But I would say don't get any more. There's really no point, because when you get to a certain level, the only cards you're going to get are cards that can either give you like 0% interest rate for 12 months to 2 years, or points. And we'll get in, that's more advanced stuff. Right now we're talking about, just getting this thing started. But within 2 years from starting from nothing, you can get up to $100,000, $150,000 worth of open credit lines legally and ethically. And that gives you, and if you've got $150,000 worth of Visa, MasterCards, and that's what I'm saying. Another reason I'm doing this is someone in one of my groups did $1,000 loan from Amazon. That's like $1,000. You should have that on the credit card. And this is the thing. I will tell you, if you have, and this is how I know because of the stuff going on YouTube. People like, $6 challenge. If you've got $20,000 in open credit, you do a cash advance and pull off 3 or 5,000. That totally changes your resale game. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people were telling you they don't have any money. They don't have any money. They don't have any credit. They don't have knowledge, because you could do so much when you have the right knowledge. It's crazy. I'll tell you. At one point, because and this is something else that will happen, I had about $400,000 worth of credit lines between line of credit and my name, personal name, and credit cards, with about 300,000 of that being in credit cards. When you start applying for stuff, that's when people start shutting your shit down. When you get past about 200, you can hang on to a lot of stuff at 150. 200, yeah, if you're consistent or some of the cards are old. You get to 300, you get something else, someone will close your shit in a heartbeat. It's like, you get this one goes away. Because they watch, because they're looking at it. And it's like, if you've got a card with a $50,000 limit and you've had that card for 10 years, you don't really run into a lot of problems. But if you got a card with, $20,000 limit and you've only had these cards for like a year or two, they're going to watch you more so than they're going to watch someone with the same profile that had it for 10 or 15 years. So that's something you should be aware of. I can tell you that some people don't care, some banks do, but it's very feasible if you do it the right way for you to get up to $150,000, $200,000 worth of credit in 2 years to 3 years. Visa, MasterCard, American Express. And part of that is you got to get started. Now, the easiest and the best way to get started, if you don't have a credit card or you have bad credit, is join a credit union. Now, the credit union, let me tell you how to do this. Don't join any credit union. If the credit union is in a little schoolhouse and they have old lady, you want to join the credit unit that has a website and has decent limit cards, because if they give you a starter card, you can push that credit card limit up very rapidly. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. Say you go to Joe Blow Credit Union, but they have like 20 branches. They're a pretty big credit union. You get that card. First 6 months, they're watching you. But what you do is you take your cell phone bill, your utility bills, your gas, groceries. You buy everything that you can on that credit card and pay it off every week. There were some people, it's like, hey, banks frown upon you paying off your credit card every week. I've had credit cards. I've done this shit for damn near a decade, and my limit went up. So if they were like, we don't like that, they wouldn't have increased my credit limit. If anything, it makes us like, this guy has money and he's really eager to pay us. Some people say, they'll shut you down. They don't like that. I've done this with American Express. I've done it with Visa. I've never had a problem. So you run everything through it. If you can pay your car note and it doesn't cost you any crazy fees, you do that. So, say they give you a $2,000 limit, $1,000 limit, 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000, or it may be less, depending on how bad your credit is. So you may have to pay off your card 5, 6, 7, 8 times just to be able to do it. And you keep doing that, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it for months. And then one day you're going to look at your account, and it's like, bam, your credit limit went way up because a lot of cards have an automatic system that when you hit a certain dollar value, it will jack up your limit. I did this with, and I don't have Lockheed anymore. I did this with a Lockheed card because that's one of the cards I got when I was going on my credit journey. During my credit card journey, they gave me a $500 starter limit, and I just ran this. I paid that sucker off 4 times. I spent about $2,000 a month. Then they weren't impressed for 6 months. I kept doing it, kept doing it. Then month 7, I go online and I have a $5,000 limit. I went from 500 to 5,000 because in 6 months I spent $12,000 with them and paid it off, but I didn't pay a lick of interest. And then it went up to 10 the following year. They just doubled it. So in 18 months, I went from nothing to $10,000. And then this is the thing, you know, if you can't get a card at a credit union, you're going to have to get what's called a secured card. Now, do not get that bullshit Orchard, or if the card looks really cheesy, you don't want it. You don't want it because these cards only have what I call you pay your cell phone bill unit. I mean, you pay your cell phone bill and you used up half your credit line, and that gives you 50% utilization. That's not going to help you. It is not going to help you. Do not get any of those garbage secured credit cards. What you want to do is credit union first. If that doesn't work, ask the credit union, do they have a secured card? Ask the credit union, does the card at any point become unsecured? If they say no, don't get it. And this is why. If you get a secured card and you start your credit journey with that, you're pretty much that secured card is going to be the oldest card that you have in your credit profile. That's good. You can't get rid of it for 5 or 6 years until you get another card. Like, a year later, you get another card. You can't get rid of it for 5 or 6 years or 7 years because the minute you get rid of it, your score is going to drop. And it's not going to go up, and it's going to sit there, and it's going to be what I call low limit bait. Oh, you got 50. That's what they're going to give you because it's your oldest card and it's not going up. And they're like, well, if his bank's not increasing his limit, we're not going to increase the limit either. So you don't want to get that crap. You want to get Bank of America has a good one. I turned someone onto that one. This one used to graduate, but it doesn't. Fifth Third Bank had one. Ask the questions. Citibank has one, but if you burnt Citibank, so I tried to help someone and they had a Citi card, and Citibank is like, no, you fucked us before. We're not giving you a credit. Citibank is probably the best one to get because it will graduate. If you're a member of USA, I love USA, but don't get their secured cards because they don't graduate. They don't. Whatever limit you open, that's what it's going to be forever and ever until you get better cards. I would say the only difference is if you can get $5,000 limit, you got 5,000 laying around, and you go to USA and get that card. I would say do it because in 6 months you'll be able to get another card. So when you have to shut that one down, you're not losing too much of your credit your history, your time limit, length of credit profile history. So, that's what I say. You got to be smart about this. And you got to think about it. But that's the only exception. If you can do 5,000 today, get that thing started, and you will never, ever carry a balance of over. People tell you 30%. Some people tell you 20%. I'm going to say for the first 6 months, don't carry a balance, period. I mean, overpay. Have them sending you like, we're going to send you a check and then use it. Overpay. First 6 months, you don't want a balance. You just want to be using that card and building up your financial deal. Now, once you get that first card, you don't apply for nothing else for 6 months. Your whole time is because you see, you need that card to give you good credit history, and you also need to be knocking off the rocks. Don't do nothing else for 6 months, maybe a year, depending upon what your situation looks like. But yeah, you got to be really careful with those secured credit cards. All right. That went on. All right. So that is that part. Just to let you know, there will be more. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that up. So if you have any questions, this is the time to ask. And I will wait a second. Like the question thing will be below you. You can just go ahead and drop those in. And let's see. Sometimes it takes a moment for this thing to this question is from the enterprise. How do you get a business credit card without a personal guarantee? I'm going to tell you the truth. It's extremely difficult today. Um, you would need a corporation that's about 10 years old with a very high paydex and no derogs. There's a few places you can do it, but since the Great Recession, give you an example. I had a Home Depot credit card that I got up to damn near $100,000 limit, no personal guarantee. Can't do that anymore. During the crazy credit days, I mean, seriously, you could get someone that can walk in on stated income and say, "Hey, I make this and get a $400,000 house." Those days, I'm not going to say 100% over, but it's very challenging. First thing you got to do before you even talk about business credit is you have to have an LLC or Inc. You need some kind of corporate entity. And a lot of places like Staples used to give you like, it was great. I signed up with Staples. I got a credit card like the first week that my LLC was, activated. And they gave you a $750 limit, which at the time was enough to get you a very nice computer. Or I put money down because computers were more expensive. But yeah, I'm going to talk more about the business credit thing once we go through the personal credit situation, because business credit is a plan. You need the LLC. You need to know what you're going after, and you need to understand how it works. Because I will tell you, getting business credit cards, Visa and such, they don't carry the same guarantees that you have with personal credit cards. So if you get these business credit cards to stack up your business profile, just be aware that if shit goes south, there is no easy out with them like there is with personal credit cards. And this is another reason. This is actually a good question. To get some business cards like American Express with your business name on it, American Express is going to check your personal credit. There's no if, ands, what's about it. They're going to check your personal credit. And the cool thing is, they'll check your personal credit, but those credit cards will not show up on your personal credit report. Because in my heyday, when I had, because I shut a lot of that stuff down, and like the Home Depot credit card went away on its own, I had probably damn near $1 million between personal credit and business credit. But the business was doing 7 figures. That's another thing. I would strongly advise anyone that's embarking on this to work as hard as possible on their business to facilitate this, because I'm not going to lie, when I got that Home Depot credit card up to, that was my first credit card at major levels. I was a dickhead. I was just like, I got $100,000 in my pocket. I was a dickhead. I was stupid. I didn't go spending. But it made me a little arrogant, because I was just feeling something like I got 100,000. Really, with all my credit cards on me, I had like $400,000 worth of credit between the business credit cards and my personal. And fortunately, the storage auction business was so good that I didn't have what I call stuff thirst. I didn't have to go out and buy stuff because I was always getting stuff out of units. So I think that probably saved me from being a crackhead. It really did. But I'm telling you from experience of someone who had an extremely poor credit score, went through divorce, was living in all kind of bullshit, that you can do this. You can do it. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but you can do this. And I want you to imagine right now, just sit back and think about it. If you had $150,000 worth of credit lines that were not maxed out or even used, and 5,000 cash in the bank, what you can do with that is ridiculous in 2013. It'll still be ridiculous in 2014 and 2015 because most people aren't, they get credit to buy stuff. They don't get credit to make money. When you frame your mind to get credit to make money, you have a whole different thing. You're like, you're not even using your credit cards. You're just like, okay, I got this limit. I got this limit. Because when you get to that level, there's so many things you can open up. There's so many things you can do. And it's a great thing to do for you and your family. Because one, you need good credit anyway if you live in the United States of America. Two, what you can do with good credit is amazing. It's totally freaking amazing. So, okay. And like I said, I'm going to deal with the personal credit first. And then we're going to do a lot more stuff with the business credit because business credit a big change in 2009. Big change. A lot of companies, like I said, Home Depot shut down that Home Depot MasterCard, which was going through GE Credit. No, it was actually a Home Depot MasterCard was going through Citibank. And you got to understand, there's still stuff out there like that. And one of the reasons I'm being real careful with this information, and I'm not putting this on YouTube, is a person can get themselves into a tremendous amount of trouble very quickly. Very, very freaking quickly. Because once you learn this stuff, and just to throw out some stuff, there used to be, you could buy a corporation, right? So the corporation was 20 years old and take his credit profile. Now, these credit card companies have got hip to that. It's real interesting because when you buy a corporation and then you have to change the officers, and it can affect your paydex, and companies are going to look at that. If you can buy a corporation and other people remain on there as silent partners or officers, then you're good to go because they're just adding someone onto the mix. But if they are completely pulling off all of the founders, the original principles, it will totally mess up that. Then I've seen there's a lot of stuff that you can do once you know how to do this stuff. Give you an example. One of my friends, he owns everything, but he owns nothing. And I was like, how can he own everything? He owns nothing. His house is in a trust. His cars are in the LLC. If you did a background check on this guy, it would show up no assets whatsoever. Because he told me, and he really helped me. He's like, it's like, understand, we own shit. We rent shit on this planet. He said, you don't want to own stuff. You want to control stuff. And, the way that he runs his life, it looks like he has nothing. And this dude is driving that Porsche, what is that, Panera? Whatever that thing's called. It's through. That's another thing I should admit. And once you get this started and you build up, like I said, Miss Sally Mae Jones, she used to tell me all the time as a kid, if you live old long enough, you're going to get old. Say you start now, 10 years from now, you got the corporation and everything. Once you get to a certain level, you can get cars. Only thing I couldn't do with my corporate credit was get a house. I can get cars. There is a special leasing arm for Mercedes-Benz, BMW, just for corporate leases, strictly in the corporation name. And that's one of the best off-lease cars you can buy because it will be taken care of. So that's the deal. I'm going to wait and see if any more questions come. Now, what I'm going to do is next session, we're going to go more in depth on how to fix this stuff. You can ask more questions because this is how I did it. I went ahead and got my personal credit straight before I started messing with corporate credit, because you'll see people there on YouTube. It's like, and it's true. If you know what you're doing, you can have this totally business credit profile, business credit cards, and it will not be on your regular credit report. But the thing is, if you don't have the income to support that, keep it paid off, because you can get up to ridiculous business credit limits very fast because they're designed for business. Like American Express, when they give you a corporate limit, it might be $1 million for a small company of like 20 people and maybe 10, 15 card holders. Maybe say a company of 50. And yeah, it might be $1 million. Oh, this whole thing. I have American Express. I don't have a credit limit. Bullshit. You have an exposure limit. You just don't know what it is yet until you touch it. When you touch it, that you'll find out. Everyone has an exposure limit with American Express. There's no such thing as there's no credit limit. They will shut you down in a heartbeat. But if you have a company and they've looked at your financials, it gets higher. So, okay, it's 10 o'clock. And let's see. Here's the enterprise again. Judgments. How do you clear them from your report? First of all, you have to do everything I said. You have to get your credit report and you have to look at the judgment. You have to look at what year it came from, who did it, how old is it. There's a lot of things. If the judgment is 5 years old, just regular challenges may knock it off. If the judgment is brand new, you might have some problems. It just really, really depends on what the judgment is, the judgment amount, who did it. One little trick, and I don't know, it's not going to work today, is what people in know used to do. And I did this on one thing. I went to the courthouse and got my file because I had a judgment. And then I did a challenge and they could not retrieve that file in time to verify it. But like I said, judgments are real tricky. There's so many variables because the thing is, I can't give you this one answer that's going to apply to your situation without knowing exactly what your situation is. It's like you can have 10 people with 10 judgments, and each one will have to do something a little different to get those judgments off. Okay. Uh, let's see. Can you fax disputes to the credit bureau? Yes, you can, but I don't recommend it. And this is why I don't recommend it. You faxed it and you got a confirmation fax, right? Anything can happen to a fax. It can fall on the floor. But when you send certified return receipt mail, it's proof. Someone received it, someone signed for it. So yeah, you can, but I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. Okay. It's 10:02. We're well over an hour. What I'm gonna do is process this. Hold on. We've got another question. When I was just getting to that. When is the next session? Once I get this done, I will everyone that signed up, I'll just send you a link when I'm ready, when it's going to be done. But it's going to be, today is Wednesday. It might be Friday. I haven't decided yet, but it's going to be Friday or maybe Tuesday. Well, there's one, two, it may be Wednesday. Just depends because I have some other webinars going off next week. But I will let you know. Everyone that signed up for this, I'm going to send you an email for the next session. And same deal, dollar to get in. If you want the recorded version, then it'll be a different price. Okay, that's it. I want to say thanks to everybody that came out. I appreciate it. And this is going to be a lot of fun because once you get this information and you apply this information, you will be amazed at what you can do. All right, this is Glendon Cameron, and I will see you on the good side.